They mocked me at my 50th birthday party, handed me a crown that said King of Letdowns, and laughed. So I disappeared. But what I took with me was more than they expected, and they felt it. The moment they handed me that paper crown, gold, glittery, and embossed with the words King of Letdowns, something inside me cracked. Not snapped. Cracked. Like a hairline fracture in a wine glass you don't notice until it suddenly shatters in your hand. My name's Richard. I was 50 when this all started, when I became the kind of man who walks out on his family without a word. No dramatic fight. No affair. Just gone. And before you judge me, know this. People don't run from a roaring fire. They run from the quiet smoke that's been choking them for years while everyone else just keeps asking them to smile. I'd been married to Marlene for 27 years. She was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like they owed her an apology. Loud, charismatic, always had a quote ready. Usually from the Bible, always slightly passive-aggressive. Me? I could fix your computer, grill a perfect steak, and stay out of the way. That was my charm, I guess. Our daughter Olivia came along a few years after graduation. And man, she was my whole world. Every recital, every stomach bug, every college move-in, I was there. I wasn't the best dad. Who is? But I showed up. I had a stable IT job I didn't love, but I kept it because someone had to keep the lights on. Marlene stayed home, sold essential oils for a while, and later ran a women's empowerment Facebook group that mostly consisted of gossip and motivational quotes copy-pasted from Pinterest. We had the standard suburban dream, a house with a lawn, a golden retriever named Max, matching cars in the driveway. To outsiders, we were the default stock photo family. But inside, it was like erosion, quiet, slow, constant. It started small. Marlene would cut me off mid-sentence, correct me in front of people. At first, I told myself that's just how she is. Then came the digs. If I napped after work, must be nice doing the bare minimum all day. If I forgot the milk, you had one job. Always with that sing-song tone that made you feel like you were the crazy one if you took it personally. Olivia picked up on it. She'd roll her eyes when I gave advice. At family meetings, my suggestions were ignored until someone else repeated them louder. I wasn't a victim. I was just a background character in my own life. So when my 50th birthday rolled around, I didn't expect much. Maybe a quiet dinner. A cake. One night where I'd feel seen. Instead, they threw me a surprise party at the house. Everyone was there. Marlene's book club, Olivia's college friends, even my brother Jeff, who only showed up when there was free beer involved. There were streamers, balloons, a happy 5-0 banner. And the grill? Already fired up. Ribs, burgers, the whole spread. Apparently, I was supposed to cook. No one asked me if I wanted to grill on my birthday. But I smiled and put on the apron. Because that's what I do. Halfway through the party, Olivia brought out the crown. A Burger King-style paper crown, decked in glitter, red and gold, with thick block letters that read, King of Letdowns. Everyone laughed. Marlene clapped like it was the best joke she'd ever heard. Even Jeff leaned over and said, Damn, bro, that's cold. But kinda true, right? I laughed too. That tight, polite laugh you let out when your stomach's twisting, but you don't want to ruin the moment. After I grilled the food, I took pictures. Not posed for them, took them. Dad, take one of us. Olivia shouted. And one more. Make sure everyone's in it. Everyone except me. When it came time to cut the cake, someone yelled, Make a wish, Rick. Wish for a personality. More laughter. I smiled. I always smiled. Later that night, when everyone was gone, I was still cleaning up. Marlene sat barefoot on the couch, scrolling through her phone, a drink in hand. I asked her, Hey, did you really think the crown was funny? She didn't even look up. It was just a joke. Lighten up. You've been so sensitive lately. That night, after she went to bed, I sat alone in the dark. My laptop opened to a travel site. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to go. I booked a one-way ticket to Ashbrook, Oregon, a quiet town I'd visited once for work. It had a diner that served peach cobbler so good it stuck in my memory for years. I didn't pack much. Just some clothes, my laptop, a few books, and Max. Yeah, I took the dog. I left a note on the kitchen counter with my house key. I need to go. I don't think I've ever really been happy. Take care of yourselves. Richard. 2 weeks later, Olivia posted a photo from her high school graduation. One of the rare ones where I was in the frame. The caption read, If anyone sees my dad, please tell him we're sorry. We didn't realize how much we took him for granted. We just want him to come home. The comments poured in. People who barely knew me. He always seemed so quiet. You never know what someone's going through. Even Jeff wrote, "Man, I miss my big bro, hope you're okay." The same Jeff who laughed the loudest. I didn't reply, not because I didn't feel anything, but because I felt too much. They thought I'd vanished. But I hadn't disappeared. I was planning. Because while I sat in that quiet Oregon diner, eating peach cobbler and watching rain streak the window, something inside me finally snapped into focus. They thought they could laugh me away, but they didn't know who I really was. Not yet. Ashbrook was the kind of town you only ended up in if you were running from something, or trying to remember what peace felt like. One main street, a gas station that doubled as a bait shop, a diner called Rosie's where the jukebox only played songs from before 1985, and the waitress called everyone Han, without looking up from her crossword. It was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that suffocates you, but the kind that fills the space left behind when the noise in your head finally dies down. I found a small furnished studio above an antique shop. The landlord, a retired mechanic named Daryl, smelled faintly of motor oil and peppermint. He reminded me of the dad I always wished I had, direct but kind. He didn't ask questions when I paid 3 months' rent in cash. Just handed me a key and said, "Don't burn the place down." For the first time in decades, I had rhythm. Wake up early. Walk max through the fog-draped streets. Brew diner-grade coffee in a chipped mug. Write. Read. Nap. Repeat. I wasn't smiling out of obligation anymore. I wasn't flinching at words disguised as jokes. I wasn't anything really. Just still. And for someone like me, stillness was revolutionary. Then came the email. Subject line. Please read. About Dad. It was from Olivia. I stared at it for hours, my finger hovering over the trackpad like it weighed 100 pounds. Max lay beside me, tail thumping slowly, like a metronome marking time I didn't want to move through. When I finally clicked it open, the first line stopped me. Please don't delete this. She wrote that the party had felt harmless. A little roast to lighten the mood. That she'd thought I always took jokes well. That she never saw the weight piling up on my shoulders, because I never let them see it. Then came the part that undid me. You were the one holding us together, and we let you become invisible. I'm sorry, Dad. I miss you. I didn't reply, not because I didn't feel anything, but because I felt too much. So I saved the email, minimized the window, and went back to my writing. Because by then, the plan was already in motion. Not revenge, at least not the petty kind. I wasn't slashing tires or draining joint accounts. I wanted clarity. Consequences. I wanted them to feel what it was like when the scaffolding they never saw suddenly vanished. First, I called Dale, our longtime financial advisor. I'd like to remove my name from all joint accounts and transfer my investments into a portfolio under my name only, I said. There was a pause. Richard, are you sure? That's a major change. I'm sure. Does Marlene know? She will. Next, I contacted the mortgage company. Technically, the house was in both our names. But for the last 15 years, every payment had come from my account. I had the statements to prove it. I canceled the automatic withdrawals. Same with the utilities. Marlene hadn't logged into a billing portal since 2007. I'd created the logins, set up the auto-pay, maintained the entire infrastructure of our lives. I gave it 3 days. On the 4th, I turned my phone on for the first time in weeks. 20 missed calls from Marlene. 3 voicemails. I didn't listen. I just blocked her number. Then came the Facebook messages. First from Jeff. Yo bro, we gotta talk. Everything's falling apart. Call me. Then from Marlene. What are you doing? This isn't funny anymore. Come home. We need to figure this out. And finally, a public post, classic Marlene style. When someone you love abandons their family instead of talking like an adult, it says more about them than you. Cue the flood of sympathetic comments from her church group and MLM circle. But what caught my eye were the quieter ones. A former coworker commented, I always thought Rich deserved better. Hope he's doing what's best for him. Another said, I was at that birthday party. That crown wasn't a joke. It was cruel. Marlene deleted the post within hours. But it was too late. The unraveling had begun. Jeff, who had relied on me to co-sign loans, cover credit card debt, fix his car, and generally act as his backup plan, suddenly found himself rejected by the bank. No co-signer. No credit. Olivia's car loan. The payments had been coming from the joint account, until they weren't. Her next payment bounced. I wasn't sabotaging them. I just stopped carrying the weight they never thanked me for. Then came the certified letter, forwarded from our old address to my little studio in Ashbrook. Marlene had hired a lawyer. She was filing for separation, claiming emotional abandonment, seeking alimony, asserting that, as a stay-at-home mother, she was entitled to the majority of our assets. I laughed, not bitterly, genuinely, because she didn't know what I knew. I'd been documenting everything for years. Not with malice, just out of habit. Every tax return, every tuition bill, every check I wrote to fix her mother's roof or pay for Olivia's therapy sessions. Every dollar, every receipt, every sacrifice. I hired my own attorney, Arthur. Methodical, calm, and sharp as a scalpel. When I handed him a USB drive and a folder thick with documents, he whistled. "This is meticulous." "I'm an IT guy," I said. "I back things up." We built the case, not to destroy her, but to reveal the truth, that I'd been the one holding the beams of the house she lived in. Financially, emotionally, silently. And yet, part of me still hoped. For a letter, an honest apology, something that showed she understood, not just that I left, but why. Instead, I got a voicemail from Olivia. Her voice was trembling. "Dad, things are getting really bad here. Mom's trying to sell the house, but she can't without your signature. Jeff's staying with us, and they're fighting constantly. I don't even feel safe. I think I'm starting to understand why you left." That moment, those words, it flipped something inside me. Because now, for the first time, someone wasn't just begging me to come back. They were seeing me. And that meant one thing. It was time for the next step. Time to show them what happens when the man they all forgot finally stops being invisible. Every man remembers that one moment. Not the loudest fight, not the biggest loss, but the first time he realized no one was coming to save him. Mine happened in a strip mall parking lot in late November. I was 24, soaked to the bone by freezing rain, standing beside a sputtering Honda Civic with a dead battery and a soggy paper bag of groceries tearing in my hands. I had just been laid off from my first real IT job, an abrupt meeting, a severance check, and a tight-lipped good luck from a boss who didn't know my name. That night, I called Marlene. We were still dating back then. She didn't answer. Later, she texted, "Sorry. Girls' night, smiley face. Hope work wasn't too awful." It was, but I didn't say that. Instead, I drove to her apartment and sat in my car outside. Her window lit up. She was dancing with her roommates, wine glasses in hand, laughing like the world had never felt cold. I didn't knock. I just sat there, drenched and invisible, thinking, if I stay quiet long enough, maybe she'll finally notice I'm drowning. She never did. And somehow, 2.5 decades later, I was still doing the same thing, waiting to be seen. Back in Ashbrook, I kept writing. But it wasn't journaling anymore. It was documentation, evidence, a record of the invisible scaffolding I had held up for decades. I compiled everything. Receipts, emails, bank transfers, photos, calendars I color-coded for family schedules, the payment plans I created to keep Jeff from defaulting, the therapy bills I paid when Olivia's first boyfriend cheated on her, even the invoices from when I quietly funded Marlene's essential oils business and then absorbed the loss when it fizzled out. Arthur and I had built a case so methodical it felt like a living thing. It had a spine of bank statements, ribs made of dates and data, and a heartbeat powered by my sacrifices. Then, I got an email I wasn't expecting. It wasn't from Olivia. It was from Marlene. No subject line. No greeting. Just one sentence. "I miss you. I still don't understand why you didn't just tell me how you were feeling." I sat there reading it over and over, not because it shocked me, but because it confirmed everything. Because I had told her, just never in words she respected. I told her when I changed my work hours to pick Olivia up from school. I told her when I skipped my high school reunion to drive her mother to a specialist 3 towns over. I told her when I sold my record collection to help pay off Jeff's DUI fine. But I never yelled, never made a scene, never made her uncomfortable. So, to her, I'd said nothing at all. I didn't reply. I just forwarded the email to Arthur with the subject line, "She still doesn't get it." Then, on a rainy Saturday morning, something happened that snapped me out of my quiet resolve. I was coming back from Rosie's with a box of leftover biscuits for Max when I saw the rental car parked crooked outside the antique shop. It wasn't a coincidence. Leaning against the hood was Olivia. She wore a gray hoodie, hood up, arms folded tightly across her chest. When she saw me, she straightened. "Hey," she said. Max let out a low, confused bark, then trotted over to her. She knelt down, scratched behind his ears. "He remembers me," she said softly. "He's got a better memory than most people." There was a tremor in her voice, the kind that said she wasn't here just to visit. "I didn't tell Mom I was coming," she added. "I just needed to see you." I didn't speak, just nodded and motioned toward the stairs. We sat in silence in my studio for a few minutes. I offered her coffee. She took it black, like I drink mine. That detail, small and stupid, still made something shift in my chest. She looked around. The books piled high on the desk, Max curled up on the rug, a half-finished jigsaw puzzle on the table. "It's not much," she said, "but it feels more like a home than our place ever did." That one landed. Then she started to talk. "I didn't understand before," she said. "I thought you were being dramatic, just leaving like that. I told myself you'd come back once you cooled down." She stared into her coffee. Her hands trembled. "But now, Mom's crying every day. Not because she misses you. Because the bills are piling up and the pipes are leaking and Jeff won't stop drinking in the basement. She tried to sell the house, but didn't know she needed your signature. And she's furious, because suddenly, everything you did that we didn't see matters." She looked up, eyes glassy. "She doesn't miss you. She misses the convenience of you." I stayed silent. "I think," she said slowly, "I was turning into her. The way I talked to you. The way I brushed you off. I didn't realize how much I took you for granted until I came home, and you were just gone." I let her sit in that. Not to punish her, but because that's the truth I lived in for decades. Then she asked the question I wasn't ready for. "Are you coming back?" I looked out the rain-speckled window. Ashbrook was still, gray, serene. A town where no one knew my name. But I finally recognized my own reflection. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm not done yet." She didn't push. She nodded, stood, and walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the frame. "I hope someday I earn the chance to be part of your life again." And then she was gone. I stood there, still holding my coffee, letting the quiet settle back in. The next morning, I called Arthur. "It's time," I said. And that was the beginning of the end, at least for the story they used to tell about me. 3 months later, I stood outside the courthouse wearing the same navy blue suit I'd worn to Olivia's high school graduation. A little snug around the middle. Years of diner breakfasts and zero stress will do that, but clean, pressed, and appropriate. Funny thing was, I didn't feel nervous. Not even a flutter. I thought I would. But the truth was, I wasn't walking in to fight. I was walking in to be heard. The courtroom wasn't packed. Just a bored clerk, 2 lawyers, a judge who looked like she was halfway through her second coffee of the morning, and Marlene, sitting across from me in a black dress like she was auditioning for a funeral. Her makeup was just smudged enough to look like she'd cried, but not enough to seem uncomposed. That was her specialty, performative distress. She glanced up when I walked in, and for a second, I saw something strange in her eyes. Panic, like she'd just realized she wasn't the narrator of this story anymore. Her lawyer went first. He painted a portrait of a good woman abandoned. A wife who had dedicated her life to her family. A man who vanished without warning, leaving chaos in his wake. He emphasized the emotional strain, the betrayal, the loneliness. Marlene dabbed her eyes when he mentioned Olivia. It was clean, tidy victimhood. Scripted. Then Arthur stood. No theatrics. No raised voice. Just a slow, calm unraveling of their version of events. He started with the financials. 20 years of pay stubs, tax returns, investment records, utility bills, all in my name. He showed exactly who paid for what, how consistently, and for how long. Then came the timeline. Birthdays I organized, vacations I funded, therapy sessions I paid for, emergencies I handled alone. A catalog of invisible labor. Next, the crown. Yes, the king of Letdowns crown. We had it. I'd saved it, not out of spite, but because some moments deserve documentation. Arthur passed it to the judge in a sealed evidence bag. The judge raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Then Arthur showed the social media posts. The birthday party pictures where I was absent from every frame. The captions, the jokes, the comment threads. And finally, he said, my client didn't abandon his family. He stopped participating in a narrative where he was always the scapegoat, never the protagonist. This isn't a story about absence. It's a story about erasure and the quiet rebellion of a man who decided to stop being invisible. Marlene's attorney tried to object. That's speculative. The judge waved him off. It's context. Marlene finally spoke. She tried to explain the crown. It was a joke. Just a joke. He always laughed at our humor. Arthur calmly replied. A joke implies shared laughter. What this was mockery. Documented, repeated, in public. The judge nodded slowly. When the ruling came, it was swift. The court ordered the sale of the house. Proceeds split 70-30 in my favor, based on my sole financial contribution over the years. Marlene's request for alimony was denied. The court found no effort on her part to secure employment, despite being able-bodied. Her emotional abandonment claim? Also denied. No evidence beyond her subjective account, which the court found inconsistent with the documented record of my involvement and support. As for Jeff, the judge ordered him to repay $18,000, money I had covered to clean up his debts. I didn't expect to see that cash, but it felt good hearing it said aloud. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cold. I wasn't the villain. After the hearing, Marlene caught up to me in the hallway outside the courtroom. Her eyes were wide with something that looked like betrayal. This isn't fair, she hissed. You made me look like a monster. I looked her straight in the eye. Calm. Unshaken. You didn't need my help with that. She blinked, stunned, then turned and walked away. 1 week later, I signed the final documents. The house was no longer mine. My name wasn't tethered to hers on a single piece of paper. It was freedom, but there were still pieces to handle. I wired Olivia enough money to cover the remainder of her car loan. One condition, she'd manage the payments from here on. No more handouts. No more silent rescues. She agreed, without hesitation. Since then, we've stayed in touch. Not often, not on a schedule, but it's real. She started calling, not to ask for anything, just to talk. About her job, her thoughts, her questions. Once, she even asked me for advice. That call nearly brought me to tears. I stayed in Ashbrook. Still walked Max every morning. Still grabbed coffee at Rosie's. Still fixed old electronics in a dusty repair shop 2 blocks from the antique store. It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough. More importantly, it didn't cost me. Then, one golden evening, Olivia visited again. She brought peach cobbler and sat beside me on the porch, legs swinging like she used to do when she was 10. You're not who I thought you were, she said. You're more. I just didn't see it until you made me look. I smiled. I wasn't angry when I left, I said. I was just done. She nodded. I'm glad you were, she whispered. Because now I get to actually meet you. The sun dipped low over the trees. The breeze smelled like pine and summer dust. She turned to me. You think you'll ever come back? I looked down at Max, sleeping at my feet. At the soft glow of the town I'd grown to love. I'm already home, I said. Because home? Home isn't where people expect you to be. It's where you're finally allowed to be. It's strange how life rearranges itself when you finally stop playing dead. 6 months after the court ruling, my life looked nothing like the one I left behind. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't miss a thing. The house sold. Marlene downsized to a modest condo on the other side of town. No lawn to mow. No crown jokes. Just laminate floors, scented candles, and a stack of bills with no one left to quietly pay them. Jeff tried to move in with her. That lasted 3 weeks. She kicked him out after he drank all her boxed wine and crashed her car into a mailbox. The family golden boy finally showing his rust. Olivia distanced herself. Not in a cruel way, just naturally. We talked more now than we ever did when we lived under the same roof. Funny how that works. Her voice changed too. Less guarded. More thoughtful. She called me without asking for anything. Just to talk. To ask questions. To share things. She listened now. That was the difference. I stayed in Ashbrook. What started as an escape had quietly become home. My studio above the antique shop, Max's spot by the window, Rosie's coffee every morning. It all settled into a rhythm that made sense. I kept the part-time job at the repair shop. Old radios, broken microwaves, vintage clocks. I liked fixing things nobody else had the patience for. There was something sacred in that, restoring what others deemed worthless. One afternoon, I found an envelope at the bottom of a moving box. Olivia's handwriting. A letter she must have written years ago, college maybe, but never gave me. The assignment was simple. Write a letter to someone who inspires you. She'd written, "To my dad, who always shows up even when no one asks him to." I read it 3 times. Then I cried. Not because I was sad. Not even because it hurt. I cried because it reminded me who I used to be. Before the jokes, before the eye rolls, before the king of Letdowns crown. That was always me. I just forgot. Or maybe they convinced me to forget. But now, finally, I remembered. The greatest twist wasn't that I left. It was that I didn't break when I did. They thought I disappeared. I didn't. I reappeared for myself. One evening, Olivia drove in from the city. She brought peach cobbler from Rosie's and sat next to me on the porch, our legs swinging over the edge like we were just 2 kids again. She looked out over the quiet street. "You know," she said, "I used to think strength meant staying. Now I think sometimes it means knowing when to walk away." I didn't reply. I just reached out. She took my hand. We sat like that in the fading light, saying nothing, but hearing everything. There was no apology that could fix the past. No speech that could undo the years I spent invisible. But this quiet moment of understanding, was a start. She wasn't asking me to come back. She was asking to move forward. And that was enough. As the sun dipped behind the pines, she turned to me. "You think you'll ever come back?" she asked softly. I smiled. "I already did," I said. "Just not to the place you thought. Because home isn't where people expect you to be. It's where you're finally allowed to be yourself." And for the first time in 50 years, I was finally home.